Hi, I'm Scarlett, the creator of the Healthy Hair Summit. The Healthy Hair Summit is the only virtual event of its kind that discusses our hair, our health, and our culture. I started the Healthy Hair Summit because there was so much misinformation out there, and I had access to the experts. And I wanted to bring those experts directly to you, giving you the information that you need to start growing your healthiest hair from the inside and out. And if you find the information from this weekend helpful and beneficial to you, then would you consider becoming a member of the Healthy Hair Gang? As a member, you will get lifetime access to all of the talks from this weekend, from the 2021 Healthy Hair Summit. You will also get a free download of our Ultimate Healthy Hair Workbook and the Ultimate Healthy Hair Guide. All of these together will put you on your journey to start growing your healthiest hair. Thank you and enjoy.
Being focused on actually parting the hair, especially if you have really thick, dense hair.
Feel that it's soft, it's manageable, it's detangable, then yes, that hair and the.
So why is it important? Because meditation is great and
some
running.
people would be like, no, definitely not. I think the majority of the women were like, nah, they prefer you not touch their hair.
Yeah.
But
I'm Scarlett Roquart, the creator of Wonder Curl. I started Wonder Curl 11 years ago in my kitchen because I just wanted products that would work in my hair. After trying tons of products on the market and being disappointed every time, I decided I could do better. I knew that I wanted products that not only made my hair look good, but also nourished my curls. That's why I use natural ingredients such as aloe vera, shea butter, along with Ayurvedic oils, ingredients that are beneficial to our hair. I also wanted to simplify the styling process. No more 50-11 products on your wash day. You just need 3 to 4 products from start to finish. And you want products that will do what they say. Well, I say that with Wonder Curl products, the way your hair looks wet with the conditioner is how it will look after it dries. No re-wetting or refreshing needed. I absolutely love these products, and I think you will too. Wonder Curl is here to help you along every stage of your natural hair journey.
Hello, I am Amy Bush, and I am the creator of Ambushed Curl Academy. I'd like to invite you to take a look at the 6-week course that we have provided that will enhance your natural curl career. And if you want to learn about the diversity of textures, then I invite you to learn my 4 pillars, and it is a proven system I teach in my salon. Let me introduce the 4 pillars to you. Pillar 1 is consultation. Pillar 2 is cutting wet and dry curls. Pillar 3 is product education. And Pillar 4 is curl styling. If you would like a great foundation in natural curls to jumpstart your career, take a look at our website, ambushedcurlacademy.com. Hope to see you there.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to our 2021 Healthy Hair Summit. I am Scarlett, the creator and founder of Wonder Curl, and also the founder of the Healthy Hair Summit. And today we are going to be speaking with Amy Bush, the owner of Ambush Salon. And you guys, I hope you have your pad and pencil or your notebooks ready, because when Amy talks, she is going to be spitting some knowledge. I promise you, you're going to be like blown away. We always love her presentations because she has so much information. So really quickly, Amy has over 30 years hair care experience in the hair industry. She has created and perfected her own set of curly hair philosophies from a collection of experiences. Some of them were textbook, but most of them were through her personal experience in various salons with a multitude of fellow stylists. She's trained both nationally and internationally, as well as collaborated with talented stylists to teach and develop others. In 2010, she opened the doors to Ambush Salon, a curly hair only salon in Gahanna, Ohio. So if you're out in the Ohio area, head over there. And she has a team of curl specialists to care for all types of curls. And she also launched the Ambushed Curl Academy so that she can share her passion for education and stylists across the globe. So thank you so much, Amy, for once again joining us and giving us so much information. Is there anything else that I missed that you'd like to add on?
No, I think that's great. Just always continuing to learn and, bringing that into the philosophies and the training. But there's certain basics with curly hair that doesn't change as far as
Right.
it goes. But there's always trends that happen that kind of come and go. But the basics of the science of curls is never going to change for
Yeah.
that.
And I like that you said like the science of curls, because just real quickly, like how is curly hair different from straight hair?
Well, the properties are going to be a little different. And, an interesting fact is the way that curly hair grows out of our head, and it grows out from the hair follicles. And so if you were to look and you were to cut a cross section of the hair and then look at it under a microscope, kind of looking at it this way, is that straight hair is going to be round like this. And the curlier the hair gets, the more flattened that hair becomes. So it's kind of like when you have a ribbon and at Christmas time you take, your scissors and you smooth that out and it gets really coily. So you just really flattened that piece of ribbon. Hair is the same way. So depending how round or in between that oval as that gets compressed, for that, get my fingers in this camera right.
Yeah.
But the curlier and the kinkier, the more it's going to be like that. And that's what's going to help create that shape. So that's one thing that makes that difference is between, straight and curly. The other thing that often changes as well is the outside cuticle of the hair. The hair has a couple different layers to it. And you've got your cuticle, which is the outside layer, the cortex, which is the one that's in the middle, and then the medulla that's in the inner, that's inside. So if you think of having a straw and having 3 different layers within that straw, that outside cuticle for very straight hair is laying down very, very flat. So it becomes very smooth. And what ends up happening is you have a lot of light reflection that bounces off. And that's why, straight hair is shinier. Same thing happens when we use heated tools, round brushes, and smooth out curls, and it becomes shiny. You've artificially flattened the cuticle on the outside layer of that hair. So as the hair gets curlier and this compresses down, the cuticle starts to raise up. And that's why we see a lot of roughness, the appearance of what we believe is dryness. There's more frizz. There's more texture to it when you feel it. It doesn't have that real smooth, sleek feel. So that's what I call the science of curls. Those things are never, ever going to change. But the times that changes is what we do to treat it.
Right.
Try to affect the change because we want to have the curls, but we want that shine. We attribute shine to being moisturized, healthy, and so we're trying to affect the outside layer and the cuticle of the hair oftentimes to have that appearance. Now, how we get there is also going to depend upon the daily care, the weekly care, the monthly care, and the choices and the products that we use in priming those curls. And that was kind of why I wanted to talk about detoxing, cleansing, and then conditioning and treatments today.
Yes. And I think this was like the perfect introduction because a lot of people who are tuning in may have had relaxed hair, and now that their hair has gone back to the natural texture, it's like you have to relearn everything all over again. And what we were doing when our hair was straightened is going to be completely different from what you're going to be doing and learning today. So let's just hop into it by first, like when you say detoxing your curls, what do you mean by that?
I know it's kind of it's one of those words that are using quite often and easily within the industry right now. But to be honest, I don't believe that you can detox hair like you detox your body.
Right.
Or if you were to go through a detox after eating a bunch of food that you shouldn't, your cells absorb ingredients in food differently than the way our hair does. So when they are saying detoxing, what they're meaning is the removal of toxins, the removal of things that shouldn't be in our hair or that are not serving our hair well. So that's the first thing. So, I don't want people to get confused in thinking what detox means. You're not going to pull out from the hair the same way that you do from your body because it doesn't process the same.
Exactly.
So our cells and our bodies are continuously moving and changing and healing themselves, and our hair cannot.
Right.
So detox kind of comes from also, if we're going to talk about history and background of products, from clarifying. So like in the 80s, it was common to have clarifying treatments done, which would completely strip everything off of the hair. But it had to, because a lot of colors and a lot of silicones and that you could not remove without having harsher treatments of removal to get back down. And then it would completely strip the hair, and it would sound like clean glass, that sound, and very harsh.
Yep, squeaky clean.
Yep, squeaky clean. So then over time, there was this kind of bouncing back and forth thing. You put it on and then you take it off. Put it on, take it off. And so as we began to see how curls were reacting differently in through the 90s and into the early 2000s, then we got to see like, oh, curly hair really needs to have a lot more moisture.
Yes.
So people then went into this mode of, well, we really shouldn't strip the hair at all. Actually, we should just do this co-washing stuff. And they decided that you just need to rinse with conditioner. Well, the problem with that is that just makes things slip around on the scalp and the hair, and it doesn't really pull it off. And conditioners have a different type of pH balance. They have a lower pH balance. So they're going to be shutting the cuticle down. So there was no removal of these other ingredients that shouldn't be onto the hair. It still was just coating and coating and coating.
Right.
And then what we saw is that certain types of textures did just fine with that, because the heavier the texture, the coarser the texture, the more it laid down. But with finer textures, it started to look greasy or too heavy. So there then became the awareness that there needed to be some sort of cleansing. And then this is where some of your non-lather shampoos came in. They felt like a conditioner, but they did a little better job of being able to break down and dissolve and disintegrate.
Those would be like the low poo and the no poo shampoos.
Yep. Or some of the other creamy ones that were out there, like Wen was a common one that was really big for a while. And so, but the problem is that still not cleansing the scalp properly and enough on a constant enough basis was still creating a lot of clogged hair pores. So hair couldn't grow properly. There was hair loss that was coming from it, because of the buildup that was on there. Or maybe they still had silicones or other types of plastics that were in the hair.
Right.
And then during that time as well, a lot of people started applying a lot of oil to their hair. And so even though the oil was natural, as we were getting into natural ingredients, that's great, but oil still does not break down with water.
Right.
It still needs to be removed. So now we're seeing a lot of people starting to understand that you have to still, whether it's natural and organic, or whether it's not, it's synthetic and man-made, you still have to have a day one cleanse. And that day one cleanse still needs to kind of pull all of that off.
Right.
So with a detox, I think there's a lot more options that are out there. Some of my favorites are going to be clay-based and charcoal-based. I feel like they keep the hair the healthiest, that they clean it properly without stripping.
Yes.
and still maintain moisture. And I find that the hair retains a lot more shine when I use those base products. So obviously we've got, I have a couple of different options of that. One is your charcoal bar, which I love, and then use quite often the clarifying and the detoxing clay-based.
Yeah.
And then Inner Sense has a really great clay-based and charcoal-based product too for detoxing. So, sorry. Okay. That has been some of my favorites. You're going to hear a lot of other brands that are out there that are used in different ways. I tend to not recommend some of these other brands as well or use them in the salon because I see that there is more opportunity for either overswelling of the cuticle and causing some breakage, even though technically it's not supposed to. But I'm seeing that anytime that you are adding intense heat to wet hair combined with something that's going to infiltrate into the cuticle, it's going to cause that swelling. It's going to create a weakened state. And if that's not handled properly, there can and will be damage and breakage afterwards. So I kind of like the idea of kind of like slow and easy. When you think of like using a slow cooker versus a microwave, things always taste better. And so you can go a slower route when using that detoxing. And if you need it more, then you can just do it more often. But, one of the things that we do talk about in the salon that a lot of people want to know is how often should they be cleansing and what should they be cleansing with? And so I tell people what's really going to determine that is going to be the porosity of your hair. Porosity is one of the biggest determining factors in deciding which products to use, how to use them, when to use them, and how often. So we have low porosity, medium porosity, and high porosity. So your high porosity textures are going to appear to be probably a lot more frizzy. They'll get wet very easily, but they're going to dry very quickly. Not going to, or you can put product on and they can feel a little too crispy with a gel, or they can get heavy very quickly. They might not have the bounce to the curl that you would like to see. It can get a little floppy or a little straight looking. So, when we see this happening, a lot of times it can be from chemical damage, environmental damage, mechanical damage from too much stress from brown brushes, detangling improperly.
Like over manipulation.
Yep. So all of those things. And so what that looks like is you'll have some very nice, pretty defined curls, and then it just kind of comes down in. So where you kind of see that change happen, that's where that porosity is changing. And so it's important to know that sometimes you might need 2 different types of cleansers for your hair as well. You might need, especially if you're coming out and transitioning from some sort of chemical process, whether it be a Brazilian blowout, Japanese keratin treatments, permanent relaxers, those sorts of things. And so if you have 2 different types of textures, you're probably going to need to treat each texture differently as well for that.
That's true.
And I think people tend to forget that. And then they're like, why is this down here behaving differently than up here?
Why is the top part poofy, but the bottom is
stringy?
Yeah, I've had that question a lot.
So, I usually say, you should have a restart day and kind of name your restart day 1. Now you can decide. So the higher the porosity, the more often you can cleanse. And the more likely that it is that you should probably cleanse with more of a regular lather type based product. And then the lower the porosity, you can go longer in between using a lather based. You should still address the needs of the hair at some point. Now even though you can go longer, but you still need to have that reset day, okay? Even with low porosity, because sometimes it does it good to have a little bit of cuticle opening on it as well, so that the moisture can get in. So that if you think that cuticle is like a door opening and closing to your home, if the cuticle is tight, that door is shut. It keeps the heat in, keeps the cold out, kind of a thing. But if you need to get into the house, you still need to open the door. So with lower porosity hair, it tends to not want to absorb moisture as well. You have to open that up so the moisture can get in, and then you use the proper treatments and conditioners to shut that cuticle back down to retain the moisture into the hair.
I want to say, like, because I've been relearning my hair texture because I used to color it, and it was high porosity. And once I stopped coloring it, this is my true texture. And I was like, whoa. And I've noticed that, like, the back part of my hair, like the bulk of my hair is actually more low porosity. Like, it takes a lot longer to get wet. I have to manipulate it more to absorb the products. And when you're talking about the detoxing part, I realized that when my hair was high porosity, I can get away with just the clay cleanser because, like you said, it opened up, product rinsed out easily. But with the low porosity hair, it holds on to it.
Yeah.
Because I guess it, you know, we had to manipulate it to get the product in. It's like, now that it's in, it's like, all right, we got to work a little bit harder to get it back out.
Yeah.
And restart and get it started all over again, right?
Yeah. Well, with low porosity hair, it used to be years ago, you know, people would go 2-3 weeks without touching their hair or washing it. And, you know, that was the general advice at the time, which laid down the tiny little hairs at the top, you know, that would maybe spring up, it would lay it down. There still wasn't any moisture getting into it. So, you know, even with your low porosities, even if you want to go longer days in between getting it wet or getting some sort of cleansing, I am still recommending to people at the very least to pick day 1. That's when you do your thorough cleansing, your detoxing, your whole entire shebang. And then one time, 3-4 days later, go ahead and do maybe a non-lather or a creamy type, conditioning type cleansing wash, right? But then on day 7, you better do your detox again.
Yeah.
So, okay, at the very least. But it's okay to do more to the hair. You're going to probably I personally, you know, would rather see people 2 times a week with low porosity. Now, if you feel like you need to have, if your needs aren't being met, then you need to have a couple of different options in your shower. So you are going to have your detox product. You're going to have a lather cleanser that's going to be appropriate for your texture. And then you're going to have probably a cleansing conditioner. And so if you can cleanse 3, you know, of some sort 3 times a week, then you can maintain in between your hair wet and, you know, be able to maintain that curl. And that curl should last. You know, if it's prepped properly on that first day, then your curl should last 2 or 3 days till you get to that next, cleanse day. And then they should be able to last 2 or 3 more days so that you can have 2nd day hair, 3rd day hair.
Right. And so you're saying is like if we're saying like typically wash day is day 1, so that should be once a week, right? And that's where you're going to be using some sort of detoxing product, and that could be your shampoo that lathers, and that just helps to remove all of the product and get you get your hair prepped and ready. And then you're going to follow up with your conditioner.
Correct. So then you would follow up with the appropriate conditioner that your hair needs as far as that goes. So finer, high porosity, you want to use lighter weight conditioners. That'll help with like more hydration, lighter weight sealing, things that are going to promote volume, bounce. With your medium weight, you can really, either way, your medium is kind of that sweet spot in the middle.
Right.
So depending upon if you want more volume or if you want to have something that's more drapey of a look, you would then use a shampoo that would either be more volumizing to encourage that and fullness, or a product, you know, that's going to promote the drapiness and the smoothness. And then with your lower porosities, you'd probably want to use something that's hydrating, moisturizing, something that has more water-loving molecules in the ingredients that are going to help pull that water either from the air into the hair, or it's going to deliver it in.
Right. And I also would say, like, what I've learned with my hair is I started staying away from like heavier, and by heavy, I mean like products that have more emollients.
Hmm.
Because I was saying, like, sealing moisture is not the issue with low porosity hair. It's
Right.
actually absorbing moisture.
Right.
And a lot of what we were taught, like you said, over the years, such as like the LOC method, the liquid oil cream, or even the LCO, liquid cream oil, those would probably work better if you have high to medium porosity, but it's like for low porosity, more water, more moisture, less product
Yes.
became my rule of thumb.
Yes, I find that that's become my rule of thumb as well. And even at that, with your high porosity, I pretty much stay away from oils,
Yeah.
period, as well, because they get too heavy. And and low porosity or high porosity hair picks up so much from their environment
That's
or even
true.
products that are put on. So, I love to layer products on the hair. And if I do use an oil, which actually is not that often, but occasionally I will, it's going to be when the hair is dry, when I'm breaking up the cast after the hair's already got all the product on it and been prepped.
Mm-hmm.
I might put a drop in my hands to make sure that I'm not roughing that hair back up as I'm working it
Gotcha.
out. So it's really to just create a lesion against my skin and the hair. Because when you go to break up the cast and to break up those curls and to kind of define, you want to have just a little something on the hands. It could be a little bit of lotion. It could be a little cream. It could be it could be almost anything. But that's when I'm going to use oil. I'm never applying oil when the hair is wet over top of everything else. Water and
Right.
oil don't mix well. It doesn't seal in doesn't seal water molecules in the hair like people thought it did. So
Interesting.
yeah, so I tend to use it as a finishing.
Okay.
Amount.
And what I found, just to talk a little bit about the oil, is that, so while you say it doesn't actually seal in the water like we thought, but it actually keeps water from getting in.
Yes, absolutely. Because once that water, because your hair dries, so that's the thing. Because it used to be when your hair is wet, like you're talking about the LOC method or the LCO, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that you've got liquid in there. So liquid could be, it's always going to be your water first, and then it's going to be some sort of spray, and then people were putting oil on, and then they were putting cream on. Well, you've got these layers on the outside of the hair now, exactly like you said, that water dries out of the hair. Your hair dries. So that means that you've lost all that liquid, all that water, that was in the hair. So now you're left with cream and oil. And that over days and days of applying cream and oil create that layering process on the hair. So that goes back to that detoxing. It needs to come off,
Right.
because if you're trying to apply some sort of moisture on your day 2 and 3, where you're not getting your hair completely wet and you're, styling your second day hair and your third day hair, that any moisture that you're attempting to put into the hair on those days to maintain your curls cannot get into the inside of the hair.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have your obvious buildup that you can see, but then there's also the microscopic that we really can't see on that when we're talking about the outside seal or buildup on the hair that we can't see.
Right.
So some of the things that I tell people to look for is that if you don't want to have a regular scheduled detox day on that restart day, then start seeing how your curls are behaving. So think about what you want them to look like. So you love it on that day 1 because they're shiny, they're bouncy, they feel soft, they're luscious, they're flexible, they're not, they don't feel dried out. And then as the weeks go by, they start to get a little limp, they get a little heavy. Maybe on your high porosity hairs, it'll look a little oily or greasy at the roots and look dry and frizzy at the ends.
Mm-hmm.
You'll start noticing maybe products starting to flake on the hair.
Right.
You'll see maybe what looks like dandruff, but it might not be dandruff. It might just be a lot of that's, building up on the outside of the
Raking
hair.
off.
Yeah. Looking dull, or just no bounce, or when you touch it, it doesn't so when you touch the curls, you want to be able to kind of push up on them and feel them like an accordion, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like have that little.
So you pull, so you have your spring factor. So there you're retracting yours because yours are curlier, but you want to be able to pull it and have it go doing, but if you pull it and it just kind of goes.
Right. Like I have certain parts at the bottom because tomorrow's my wash day. So you can see it's kind of like.
Yep. Oh, that's a great example.
Yeah.
So those are things to look for. Those are signs that it's probably time to do a little extra cleanse. And just because the hair gets something built up on it, and just because it needs to be getting that extra cleanse, doesn't necessarily mean that the products that you're using are wrong. Buildup can happen regardless of whether it's organic and natural or whether it's not. It's still just going to happen because that's part of the intention, right? When we're using styling products, we want it to stick to the hair. So,
exactly.
So that is the intention. So over time, just rinsing or just letting it sit there, it's going to have to build up. So it's important to be able to remove that. And then that way, and especially right before you use any of your conditioning or your treatments, because that door needs to be open. So you can use a lather shampoo, which is going to be better than a cream cleansing conditioning shampoo, cleanser. But really doing that detox first, and then doing your deep conditioning, or then doing your protein treatments, or any of the other reparative treatments that are necessary. It's important to do that first. And I usually tend to leave my cream detoxers, so like your charcoal and your clay detoxers, I leave them on a little longer.
Right.
So even if you see on there, oftentimes it'll say 3 to 5 minutes. I really think the sweet spot is 5 to 10 minutes for that. And I like to really, especially with those medium porosities and those lower porosities, when I'm using detox, I like to really work that in. An example I use is like if you're going to cook kale and you're going to prepare kale or some of those greens that have a little bit more body to them, you want to crush them. Okay.
Yes.
So that the oil gets into there, or the butter, or, and it breaks down in the pan when you're sauteing it better. So low porosity is exactly the same. What's that?
You bruise it.
Yeah, you have to bruise it a little bit. Exactly. So low porosity hair is exactly the same. So being able to section out those sections and paying attention to where the lower porosity is on your head, because that's going to also change from area to area. So oftentimes here is a common spot where the hair is much lower in porosity. Curls are defined.
Very true.
So even if you start there first and then work your way around, spend a little extra time really breaking that up with your fingers and using kind of a circular motion for that. Sectioning out and getting one section and working it down, getting another section, working it down. Those are sorts of things that is going to help that to kind of really start working with the hair, especially the lower porosities. The high porosities go absorb it instantly, like an instant thing. So, you don't always have to work them as much. And making sure that that hair is thoroughly wet. Water is part of the cleansing process. So water goes in and it temporarily breaks down the bonds and the barriers inside the hair. And it naturally, because of its pH balance, opens up that cuticle. So just by the process of getting the hair wet, that cuticle is open. So that helps, that it's opening the door for the other product to come in and to work. And so the water works with the other product to also then rinse away, to slip off. If you try to put your detoxing product, your cleansing product straight onto dry hair, it's very hard to move through. It doesn't work up the lather if it needs to work up a lather, or it doesn't slide and slip. It kind of just lays on that top area. So that's why, especially with curls, we're always like, make sure the hair is thoroughly wet, soaking wet, drippy wet when you're applying your product.
So true. And That's something that I also learned with my hair is when I use my clarifying charcoal shampoo bar, and I use that every time I wash my hair now, is that I will part my hair down the middle. I will lather up one side, lather up the other, and let it just sit for a few minutes, which is something that I didn't do before. I would just like hurry up and rinse it out. But I have found that just from letting that lather sit on my hair, it helps my cuticles to open and absorb a little bit better. And then I rinse it out. And then I would follow with the detoxifying clay cleanser. And I use that as my conditioner because, like you said, I didn't need as much of a heavier oil-based conditioner because I was like, my hair is already like I said, like it doesn't have any problem holding in moisture anymore. It's about getting that moisture.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you can add, and you can get it to hold the moisture. So like you said, it's a two-part, right? It's a two-part thing where you want to be able to receive the moisture and then you want to hold it.
Yeah.
And there's ways to do that. And so, like you were saying, because there's even been times that I've done, you know, the clarifying or the charcoal bar first, and then followed up with the clay cleanser. And then I followed up with a heavier moisturizing or hydrating conditioner. And then I will have used a leave-in conditioning spray and then some sort of maybe leave-in moisture-based, either a leave-in conditioner or a cream that is moisture-based, and then put my hold over top. So being able to layer with multiple products, because each product has a purpose and has a different porosity and a different way of attaching to the hair and holding onto the hair and, you know, drawing moisture into the hair and holding the hair. So, you know, being able to layer the multitude of products is going to help keep that feeling moisturized as the days go on.
So we just spent about half an hour discussing cleansing the hair or detoxing it, which I think is super important because it's often something that we overlook or try to avoid because for so long we were told that shampoos were bad for the hair. So I'm glad that we spent a lot of time going over that because it is probably, in my opinion, the most important part of a healthy hair care regimen. But let's now switch over to the second part of it, which would be your masks, your treatments, your deep conditioners, you know, so we have all of these terms and we get confused. So what do they mean and when should people be using them?
So I think that everybody should use something. So because it is going to be intended to shut down and close the cuticle. So that means that it does have to still deliver nutrients into the hair to give us the results that we're looking for. So low porosity or high porosity hair that tends to be fine needs to be more of a protein type base and a light hydration to help it out. If you put too much moisture into the hair, it's going to get very heavy and it's going to get floppy and it's not going to have any bounce or body to it. So that's the number one thing there. Medium porosity, you know, it's going to be kind of dependent, once again, what you're feeling like for that day. So kind of more like a treatment based. You know, if you're feeling a little dry one day, you can add a little extra hydration or moisture. If you're feeling a little floppy, you can always add a little boost of protein. So kind of like getting some vitamins in during the week if you're feeling a little down or feeling like you're going to be getting a cold. Right. And then with the low porosity hair, then we know that because of the lack of moisture and that it's a much stronger texture and a much stronger feel to it, and we want to actually add more softness, we need to really load it up with the moisture and then support with the hydration. So that's how you're going to choose. Sometimes it's a matter of just trying something. You know, you see a brand, because from brand to brand, it's kind of like women's clothes. Sizes are not consistent. So a size 6 in one brand is going to be a size 8 in another brand. Or it could be a size 4 in another brand. You know, it's very dependent. That's how terminology is used between masks and conditioners and treatments. So you're
Right.
just going to have to ask the professional who knows that product line to give some breakdown and some examples on what those products are, doing or what they're required to do.
Right, right. So I actually want to use the last of this time to really talk about protein, because I
Yeah.
feel like that is something that we can overuse. And some people will say that they are protein sensitive. So first, is protein sensitivity even a thing?
It's not a term that I've ever used. I think that my interpretation of the terminology of protein sensitive is more based upon the fact of how their hair feels after having protein applied to it. If your hair is protein sensitive, then I think that would look like the hair feeling dry, crispy, feeling brittle, maybe snapping if too much pressure is applied to it. So really what they're describing is the hair becoming over proteinized.
Right.
It's just too many layers of protein.
And I would even say if someone says that they're protein sensitive, it probably means that you didn't need protein to begin with.
Right. Yeah.
Like your hair's protein levels were already what it needed to be, and then you just added to it and threw it off balance.
Yeah. And if we're going to go on the other side of things, on the pendulum swing, then maybe we could say that somebody's hair is moisture sensitive,
Right.
So that same idea and that concept, right? So yeah, you just didn't need it. If your hair is to that point where it's snapping off or breaking because of protein, then you are probably using some pretty hardcore protein reparative type products. I'm not as aware anymore that those really exist, in my opinion, where it's at that point. That to me is more old school, when animal-based products were being used.
Right.
Those definitely would create a hard casing or coating on the hair that would make it so hard that no moisture could get in, and it would we did it all the time in the late 80s and in the early 90s,
Yeah.
Protein.
Remember there's the big jar of cholesterol.
PPT by Redken was another big one.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, we would accidentally leave it on longer than the recommended amount, and the hair would start breaking. Most protein-based products now are going to be plant-based.
Yeah.
Or food-based. And so they're a softer, gentler type reparative and bonding that's going in. They're a smaller molecular size, so they're going to be absorbed deeper into the hair. And so it doesn't create that chain, of bond like the animal-based protein did.
Right.
So once again, if somebody's just having that sort of an issue, they probably need to balance it out. So anytime you feel, moisture is always going to balance out protein.
Okay.
Is kind of a thing. So if the hair is really floppy, it needs protein for structure.
Mm-hmm.
And I love a lot of products that have amino acids in them. Amino acids are your building blocks. Those, I think, are going to do a much better job. So when you look at the bottle of protein reparative treatment, once again, I always am going to refer to the expert, because they're going to know their product line better. Like there are some product lines I just don't know what the ingredients are, what they're intended for, or how they work. So I would defer to someone who does in that product line.
Right.
When you're talking about treatments, it is important to know how it's working and why it's working before jumping into just picking something off the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And I've also found that I'll have women who will say, when I ask them, like, well, what is your hair care regimen like? And they'll say, well, I do a protein treatment once a week or every other week. And then they do like a moisturizing deep conditioning. And so I'm like, you're actually canceling out what you're doing, and you don't need to do both. You probably don't, right? You're just adding more work than you needed.
Yeah. And I would say, or if you do want to do something weekly, every week, do some sort of treatment. if the hair is generally overall feeling fine, you can just leave your regular conditioner on a little longer. Because
Right.
that's something too that when you were talking about earlier, finding out that it just needs to be left on a little bit longer when you're talking about the cleansing, the same thing goes for using your conditioning. So if you just put it on, run your fingers through really quick in 2 to 3 minutes, and then rinse it out, you're probably not getting enough benefits. So sometimes the answer is just as simple as leaving it on longer. Because sometimes people will be like, well, my conditioner's not working. I think I need a deep conditioner. I think I need a mask.
Yeah.
But your regular conditioner, just leave it on 5 minutes, 10 minutes instead of 2 to 3 minutes. And I think that you'll see a big change.
That's great info, because again, sometimes we think we need to be doing all of these things because we're seeing it on YouTube,
Right.
and we're not understanding that, you know what, you might be doing more harm than good, and the solution is so simple. Like you said, it could just be like, just leave the conditioner in. So I would say, like, and this is how I learned what worked for my hair. Like, so for anyone who doesn't know, like, I used to color my hair, and I actually learned too late was that when I dyed my hair blonde, that's when I should have been doing protein treatments to my hair, because my hair was extremely dry because of that. And it took me, it was harder for my hair to keep the moisture in, because my hair would feel dry and dull after a couple of days, which is, it wasn't normal for me before. But after I chopped off all my hair and was like, all right, I'm not going to color my hair anymore, I'm going to let my grays come in, I had to, every week, I was like, let me try this, let me try that, let me see what works. And I was writing it all down to see what was going to work for my hair, until I finally figured it out and kind of like cracked the code. So it's like, if a protein treatment made your hair feel dry, well, let's leave it alone. Next week, let's try something new and see how that makes our hair feel. How do you?
Well, and then I would tell people is that if you're going to do that, it's kind of like your elimination diet. If you have, so to be kind of able to zero in, I say start really simple and then just kind of gradually add in over the days or the weeks, like one product change at a time. So if you already have like your base of products that that already work, then maybe only change one at a time or eliminate one at a time. Because if you do 3, then you don't know which of the 3 it is. So you have to be able to narrow that down, what those changes are.
I love that you use the elimination diet as your analogy, because I feel like we understand that. And when you said, I was like, that was making me remember when I was trying to figure out my skin, and I was like, what's going on with my skin? And I noticed that certain oils made my skin break out, whereas others did not. And I had to every week try the oil, and I was like, don't use anything else. And then I paid attention to see what was happening. And it's going to be the same thing for you to get to that, like, that health of your hair, is that you will have to start writing it down and say, okay, this week I use this product, this happens, and then next week, add on to it or remove until you get that sweet spot. And it's frustrating at first, but once you finally get it, you're like, yes, this is it. This is how I'm going to, this is my hair care regimen for the rest of my life, unless my hair changes for whatever reason. Right?
Well, and also, right. So when you're talking about changing, the important thing about changing is knowing that certain factors can attribute to that. So oftentimes, especially here in Ohio, we're going to have cold weather products probably, and then we're going to have humid weather products that we use. So it's not uncommon to have 2 different sets of products that you're going to be using throughout the year. Or after having a baby, your hair can change. Menopause, so going through hormonal changes in the hair.
Right.
Will to that. Or if you've been ill, that can change. And by the time you see the changes in your texture changing like that, it's already been happening. So, as that's going through, you're not going to see the changes immediately.
Right.
That's affecting. It can be 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or a year later that you're seeing that growth. Because if your hair grows as an average a half an inch a month, then it can take a few months for that to grow out.
Right. It does. And I think that's why it's so important to just like pay attention to what your hair is doing every time you wash your hair. And for me, I was obsessed with hydration. And it was from your last talk that I started connecting the difference between hydration and moisture.
Mm-hmm.
And so now how I tell people, of course, is like hydration is when you drink your water.
Yep.
Inside. Moisture is when you're just wet.
Yep. And when it's on the outside, because we moisturize our skin.
Right.
Hydrate our bodies. We don't moisturize the inside of our body. So it was kind of that where the molecules go in. So on the hair, moisture stays a lot more on that outer surface and that outer cuticle. And hydration kind of is a little bit smaller molecules and slips in. Moisture molecules draw from the air continuously. So
Yes.
whatever moisture is in the air, it pulls it in and holds it. And hydration is actually in the molecule in the product that you're using. And that's what slides and slips in and holds into the hair.
Yes. And I became obsessed with keeping my hair hydrated after that, because I was like, you know what? When my hair is hydrated, it holds the curls better. It's softer. It's easier to detangle on my wash day. And so then it became about, how do I keep my hair hydrated? How do I get that hydration on my wash day, on my day one detox day, and then maintain it throughout the week?
Yes.
And I think that's what we should be thinking about when it comes to curly hair.
Yes. Yeah. Versus just the outside. So much focus has been just put on the outside of the hair for so long, and not really thinking about but wanting it to get inside, And so, yeah, hydration is that key.
Absolutely. And so I want to chat a little bit again about like oils.
Yes.
Because people will think they need to add more oil to their hair when it's dry. And you said that you rarely use you never use oil on wet hair, and you only use it for a cast. So can we just chat a little bit about why we should avoid, and when I say oils, I mean like raw oil, versus oil in the formula of the product?
Yes. And I'm glad you made that clarification, because I've gotten so used to saying it that is what I mean. It's not that I stay away from all oils. Because I do have products that have modified oils in them that have been properly modified down so that they can actually sit on the hair properly, be shampooed off properly, absorbed into the hair properly. The good parts of those oils are pulled out and made into a form that the hair can accept. But raw ingredients don't have that capability. So just plain raw just sits on the outside of the hair, and it just sits there. And it's a lot harder to remove. It's a lot harder to break up those molecules and to rinse them off and away. And then oils, natural oils, raw oils, all have different molecular weights and different sizes. So imagine having different size marbles, little marbles, big marbles, and so, each one of those are heavy. So like, I know that in the past I've talked about raw coconut oil and how it's a very large molecular size. And, I know for a time it was very popular that a lot of people were using coconut oil for everything.
Yes.
The problem is that it does solidify at room temperature, or as temperatures get colder. So it's not going to break down well. You look at it in a jar and it is one solid chunk of oil. It doesn't flow. It doesn't have that same sense of flow to it. Lighter weight oils are going to be like grapeseed, sesame seed, jojoba oils. Those are a much smaller molecular structure. Those are going to get absorbed into just even your skin.
Yes.
And so one way to test is to take a little bit of oil and place it on your skin and see how well it smooths out, spreads out, and how does it dissipate and get absorbed into your skin
Mm-hmm.
before it kind of feels like it's not really there anymore. Jojoba oil is very lightweight. That's why it's used as a carrier oil as well, because it's such a small
Right.
molecular size. So those are things to remember about oils. And personally, I feel like the hair, when used with raw coconut oil, tends to feel kind of stiff and heavy. It doesn't have that bounce to it. And it takes a lot to remove. A lot of times, it takes a couple of detox treatments.
Right. And it's the same thing with like raw shea butter, because like
Yes.
African American women, Black women, we love our shea butter. And
yeah, but it's once again very heavy in its raw form.
right, it's very waxy.
Yeah. Yep. So it does a great job of laying down the tiny little hairs. It does a great job of kind of acting kind of like a pomade or a heavy cream and
Yeah.
defining. But then over time of days after day of using it, then at some point you start feeling like the curls are heavy. They're just laying there.
Or
They're
it's
not
sticking
flexible.
to each other.
Sticking to each other. Right. So, now I love shea butter after it's been modified and put into a hair product. I love coconut oil after it's been modified and put into a product. I love all those butters and oils when they're added in. And I even love it better when I have a product that has a combination of them, because now they're able to, help each other instead of just being one.
Absolutely. And I think that's what sometimes people get confused, because they're like, oh, I have to stay away from all oils and butters. It's like, no, you want to make sure it's in the formula of your product.
Yes.
But you don't want to use it straight up out the jar on your hair. Like, it's not going to help your hair to absorb moisture when your hair needs it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, like you said, and then if we're not shampooing our hair properly, and unfortunately I've seen it a lot, and I'm sure you do at your salon, where clients just aren't shampooing their hair, and you can see the buildup like right in their scalp.
Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah, especially with kids or teenagers that aren't, maybe combing through their hair or brushing their hair as well, and it gets a little knotted, a little matted up underneath. Then when you finally do start detangling and removing the mats, you can see it collected in between the hair.
Yeah. So we only have like a few minutes left. Again, I could talk about this for hours. If you want to just do like a quick recap, because I feel like within the short amount of time, like we discussed a lot. So if people were just going to say, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, how would you give it to them?
Sure. So I would say always go ahead and pick your day 1. That's going to be your shampoo, your cleanse, your detox. You're going to decide your shampoo or your cleansing products based upon porosity. For your finer hairs, you can use more of a lather shampoo. Maybe stay away from a lot of the co-washing or the lather-free and the cream-based cleansers. Definitely. For your medium porosities, you can go either way. Do a lot of experimentation, have fun, see what works best for you on those days. Your low porosity hair is going to do best also with having a bit of your detox day, your cleansing day, and don't forget to really work in your products to be able to open up that cuticle so that it can then receive the proper moisture. Definitely you can use your co-washes as well with that, but don't forget to slip in the occasional lather shampoo during your week to make sure that that is able to open up and receive your hydration. Moving into your treatments, yes, maybe focus more on your hydration and hydrating type products versus just moisture. Only add protein if you have a specific need with your high porosity hair. Protein is your building blocks. So don't need to use it all the time. Definitely lots of different treatments out there, from leave-in protein treatments to, kind of spot treatments where you might do it for 5 or 10 minutes. But yeah, only your finer textures and your high porosities are going to do great with your proteins. and, really kind of determine which is it that the hair really needs. So hair needs protein if it's floppy and has no bounce or spring. Hair needs moisture if it's stiff and dry and crispy. So that's how you're going to know that you need moisture. And everybody's hair needs a little bit of hydration.
Yes. Awesome. I think that's a great way to just give us the index, so to speak. And then we can go back in and look at all of the details so that we can better understand what should we be doing and when. Because I find that that's probably like the hardest part. But thank you so much. I really enjoyed this, and talking to you, I always learn something new. And it also helps me to feel like, okay, I'm on the right track with what I've been doing so far, because every time I have these talks with you and the other curly hair experts, I'm always like, okay, let me try this with my hair and see if it works, because you guys know what you're talking about.
So we're always learning too. We're always getting better options for products that are being presented out there. Companies are learning ingredients and refining those. So, it's a continuous learning journey.
Absolutely. So once again, Amy, thank you so much. And you guys, make sure that you are following her. I'm going to on Ambushed Salon right down there in her Instagram. You're going to be blown away by the amount of information you learn if you want to continue this. Once again, thank you for your time. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you. And I always have a great time talking with you too. Thanks for having me again.
Thank you.
All right.